You have some level of qualification or some degree or some... So none of that's bad, but what I'm saying is we have subconsciously made that success because it's so visual and transactional and say, hey bro, guess what? What? I'm a Fortune 500 CEO, dude. Like, and then everyone's like, oh. And everyone's ears perk up a little bit. Oh, you pastor your own church? Oh, okay. Oh, you have a podcast? Oh, you wrote a book? Oh, you have a business. And subtly, in all of our hearts, when we have that conversation with one another, we exalt or lower according to this subconscious hierarchy of what we think success is.
Come on.
That is not biblical or the kingdom. God does not see as man sees. He looks at the inward person of the heart. And we make king and we exalt the business owners and the leaders and the big name ministries. We make king when God has not made that king. He chose David on the backside of the frickin' wilderness. Who was born conceived in sin, it says in the Psalms. Who was an illegitimate son. Wasn't even invited to the prophet's house. I don't know what that means, conceived in sin, or there was another woman or an adulterous relationship or something, but that's what it says. And so God has this way of choosing the least of these. I feel like we've allowed subtle American cultural value systems and norms to creep into our perspective and lenses about how we define success around big things like eternity, like church, and like ministry. And I feel like that's a problem. And the reason why it's a problem is because I just came out of a season of stepping down from about 10 years of mostly full-time ministry and traveling around and doing all sorts of things. I just started a construction business. And when I stepped down out of ministry, I saw ugly things surface in my heart. I was wondering moments of, who am I? Like, if I'm not leading, where's my significance? Pray to your Father who's in the secret place, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you openly. Where is God? He's in the secret. How does God see in the secret? How does God see? He sees through the lens of hiddenness and humility and childlikeness. I'm going to unpack that some more.
So good.
I want to be clear as well. I think I've maybe given enough disclaimers for the mess, but please hear this. Way before the prophetic is a gift, the prophetic is the culture of God's heart. God does not see you as what you are not. He doesn't see you even as you currently are. He sees you who you are in the fullness of your identity, that is the most prophetic thing ever.
You know, this is an era of spectacular progress, particularly in bringing the good things of life to more and more people.
And from their talks was forged a map of the path to freedom, a compact for the future, A map of the path to freedom.
You guys are getting a bit of a raw, fresh process of my heart that is, I'm just kind of trying to break off a chunk of my life and heart and what I've been thinking about, what I feel like the Lord's been trying to communicate to me. And share it with you guys, and hopefully we can kind of all go somewhere together with it and kind of figure it out as we go. But I want to talk to you about how to become famous in heaven. And the idea of fame is an interesting one because I know that fame doesn't really work the same here as it does in heaven. But Jesus talked a lot about greatness and what it looks like to be great, right? Like he actually defined it crystal clear what success and what greatness looks like. And he just so happened to the disciples come to Jesus and they're like, hey, would you teach us how to be great? Like, what does it look like to be great? And so he pulls the little children, hey, come here. brings little children over, and I just love that you guys are hanging out next to me because this will preach right here. Right here. I got greatness next to me right now. I don't know about y'all, but it's right here. There's greatness right here. We need some help over here, but not over here. We're okay. So it's right. That's right. And so Jesus, I mean, why don't you go ahead and turn to 1 Samuel 16, if you have your Bible. So 1 Samuel 16, verse 7. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time there, so I'm just going to go ahead and read it. So the context for this is the Lord spoke to the prophet Samuel that there's going to be a king for the people of Israel, right? Mm-hmm. So Samuel, the prophet, who's like the biggest deal of the biggest deal in all the land. He's like Bill Johnson, Brad Pitt, and whoever else combined all in one. And yes. And so Samuel shows up to Jesse's house. Jesse's the father. He's got 1 million sons, or like 13 or something. David isn't even invited to dinner with Brad Pitt because he's the youngest son. He's second class. He's out tending the sheep. And so Jesse is like, well, here are all my sons. And the prophet Samuel's going down the line and looking with his eyes. And I feel like this is oftentimes what we do is we're going down the line and we're looking at our eyes at our current circumstances. And he gets to the oldest son who's tall and handsome and obviously it's this son that the prophet is to anoint king over Israel, right? But in verse 7, it says, the Lord said to Samuel, do not look at his appearance or at his physical stature. Do not look at his outward appearance, because I have refused him. Eliab was the oldest son. I have refused him. It sucked to be refused, but... For the Lord does not see as man sees, for man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. Come on. And I feel like there are many. So this is really what I'm gonna talk about. I'm gonna share some stories in a sec that illustrate it perfectly, and then kind of dance around it and talk about how jacked up some things are, and then what the solutions are, and then hopefully we get somewhere encouraging at the end. But guys, I'm not gonna lie. Like, it could get a little messy. We'll love it. We'll see, because this is not a polished deal. So the Lord looks at the outward appearance, but God looks at the heart. And I feel like so much of our life in ministry, our life in business, our success in our American culture looks like, I will go, and king to me, success to me looks like the oldest son. Obviously that's it. Obviously that job is it. Obviously having a big name ministry is it. Obviously being blessed in my finances and being da-da-da-da. And obviously that's it. And then the Lord's like, the kingdom of heaven actually looks like a child, not like a king. The kingdom of heaven, I actually don't see as man sees. I don't look at the outward appearance. I look at the condition and appearance of the heart. Come on. And so we live in a very upside down, backwards, turned around kingdom. And part of what I feel burdened in my spirit to do is to, I guess, just remind us. A lot of this isn't new stuff that I'm going to be talking about tonight, but I feel like the Lord wants to release an awareness and here's the word, a prophetic discernment, a prophetic eyes to see and think like heaven sees and thinks. Because you guys are talking about the prophetic, right? And so please hear this. Way before the prophetic is a gift, the prophetic is the culture of God's heart. So good. God does not see you as what you are not. He doesn't see you even as you currently are. He sees you who you are in the fullness of your identity, that is the most prophetic thing ever. Yeah. And so the prophetic is the outworking, and the fruit of the prophetic is the word of knowledge and is prophecy and is the gifting. but it's the culture, it's the eyes of God.
Come on.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yes, that's good.
So,
recording this.
Yes.
yeah.
We have
There's like 5 different recordings going on. I don't think I'm kidding. So, anyone ever read The Final Quest by Rick Joyner?
Yes.
Oh no. So I'm going to try to burn through this because I think I have way too much to say. The Final Quest was written by a guy named Rick Joyner, incredible prophetic father in, does anyone know where he's at? Morningstar Ministries, thank you. So this guy, Rick Joyner, he's a beast of a man, dude. He has like pioneered and reinstituted the prophetic spirit in America, in American churches, like one of the very first forerunners, started back in the 60s, and they've just been pioneering. And so this guy has, years back, this, I don't know how many days long or however long it was, but it was this massive open vision where the person of wisdom, the Lord Jesus Christ, leads him through all of these stages and revelations, and like Revelation chapter 4, come up here, open door to heaven. So Jesus, the Bible says, Jesus has become unto us wisdom from God, right? And the person of wisdom, like this embodiment of wisdom, who he finds out at the end of the vision, spoiler alert, that it's Jesus, is walking him through all these things. So there's one part of the vision where, so this isn't just like prophetic analogy, I don't think. This was like really happening. Like you can actually go places in the spirit. Like heaven's a real place. It's not just some ethereal, like when you die thing. No, it's like right here, right now. Kingdom of heaven is inside of you, and it's all around us, and it's available. And it's super biblical, actually. Like there's translations and transportations and all sorts of raptures and transfigurations and all sorts of crazy things happening in the Bible. Even though it may not be normal to us, it's normal there. And he goes into this part of the vision where they walk into the throne room, which is like not even close to a room, but there's no shadows there because the light of God's presence emanating from the center of this room. And there's circles upon circles upon circles upon circles of thrones for the saints. Circles upon circles of thrones for the saints surrounding the throne of God at the very epicenter of this incredible expanse of a room. And he said he's like doing his best to describe it in English, but it's impossible. And he's navigating through with the person of wisdom up kind of closer to the presence of the Lord. He wants to see the Lord. And they're on the outskirts of this kind of throne room area, and he's like, "Oh, I reckon that's that big name evangelist. That's that person who had that huge ministry." And he didn't mention their name to honor them, but we would all know their name, like that kind of caliber of minister, if you will. And so he's like, and the implication is in the vision, the closer you walked with Jesus on the earth, it's the closer in intimacy you are in proximity to the throne of God in heaven. Now, I don't know theologically how this all works out. I ultimately don't really care at this point because what I'm about to say preaches so good, and it changed. I think about it every day. Like it's so changed my heart. So he's talking with this big name evangelist, a couple of these guys, and they're like, "Yeah, we did a lot for the Lord on the earth, but we didn't really know him and we didn't really love super well," is essentially what they said. So like, knife to the heart a little bit. They're navigating through some more pastors and ministers and these different ones. And what they're finding is they're getting closer to the center, is that there's just normal everyday people that didn't have a name, that didn't have a ministry, that are closest, ravished in their hearts to Jesus. So they get to the inner circle, okay? I want to be in the inner circle.
Come on.
And I am. We are in the inner circle of his love. But there are levels of knowing him, and I want to know him. I want to be the Mary that sits at his feet and hears his word and chooses that better part. So they get to this inner circle thing, okay? And he's looking around, and guess who's in this inner circle? It is 90% moms.
I was going to say me.
Children.
It was me.
Heck yes. It's basically this. You're in the inner circle, dude. Famous in heaven.
He's like, I was?
Inner circle, it's 90% mothers.
Come on.
Who never really left home, but became love to their children.
Come on.
Who laid their lives down for their children, who understood what it looked like to become love. And guys, I don't even know. I think about this every day because we have we just have these definitions of success, even in our incredible kingdom-minded, revival, biblical driven agenda for transformation on the earth. Like, we have these definitions of success that I'm in my own heart, I'm wondering about. I'm just wondering, like, here's what it is. It's not either or. It's not just be a nobody on earth or do revival on the earth and be famous on the earth or famous in heaven. It's not either or. It's both and more. It's we're called to all of it. So what you're going to get tonight is more of an articulation of the one side. So we're in a season, guys, of the church right now where it is activation and prophecy and healings and miracles and signs and wonders that's unprecedented in terms of an entire church body over the nations. It's like, we believe in the goodness of God. We believe that we're all called to lead. We're not just people sitting in pews showing up to Sunday morning church. We're actually doing stuff. And that's our inheritance as believers. And I want to be really clear. I'm going to spend a little bit of time tonight bashing big name ministers. You'll see what I mean by that. Not by name. You'll see what I mean. Just trust me. I told you it was going to get messy. I told you. I'm going to spend a little bit of time creating an emphasis on one side of the thing, but let me tell you this. I'm first in line on the impartation deal with Randy Clark and Bill Johnson. I'm reading revival books constantly. I believe there's men of God that are set as forerunners, men and women of God that are created and ordained by heaven to be a plumb line, a standard bearer. As you look at this man, I read Smith Wigglesworth's life. I read William Branham's life. I read Bill Johnson's life. I look at his life and I'm like, yeah, I'm not there yet. That's where I'm going though. And that's encouraging to me because, oh my gosh, like, so what I'm saying tonight is not devoid of honor. I want to be clear about that. And you guys know my heart, so I think we're going to be okay. Mark 12:42. Mark 12:42. You don't have to turn there, but you can. I can't make you not turn there. Y'all are powerful. Don't turn there.
Don't do it.
So this is the widow's mite, right? So this is the religious context of everyone giving, the Pharisees giving out of their abundance and giving out of their religious duty and giving to be seen, right? And the widow comes, who's a nobody, who's insignificant, and somehow this woman who was nothing gave 2 cents and gave more than all of these religious people and all of these big names and all of these ministries maybe ever did. And that's really significant to me. 2 Corinthians 6:10, Paul says this, I mean, it's the tip of the iceberg, but he says, in our ministry, in my ministry, I have nothing, yet I possess all things. And I'm poor, yet I make many rich. So, and again, I'm focusing on one side of the message. So are we called to prosperity? Heck yes. Are we called to revival? Heck yes. Are we called to lead? Absolutely. Is God afraid of titles and ministry and big ministries? No. Like, God's all over big name ministries, and I want to be clear about that. So, nevertheless, what I feel like has happened is I feel like we've allowed subtle American cultural value systems and norms to creep into our perspective and lenses about how we define success around big things like eternity, like church, and like ministry. And I feel like that's a problem. And the reason why it's a problem is because I just came out of a season of stepping down from about 10 years of mostly full-time ministry and traveling around and doing all sorts of things. I just started a construction business. And when I stepped down out of ministry, I saw ugly things surface in my heart. I was wondering moments of, who am I? Like, if I'm not leading, where's my significance? And if I don't have a title, then, I feel out of joint. I feel like I don't know what my place is. I don't know if people are actually going to honor me in the same way. And so the Lord's convicting and exposing these things that he's just like, son, you just don't need that. What are you doing? Like, I love you so much more. You have so much more than that subconscious cop-out and lesser than reality. And so I feel like the Lord is just promoting us maybe today, and I feel like there's just lenses to see a little bit differently. So Matthew 6:6, I'm just going to blast us with some scriptures. Matthew 6:6, but when you pray, okay, so backing up, Matthew 5, 6, 7 is the Beatitudes, right? It's Jesus's like essential teaching on what it means to be a follower. And it's really radical, guys, because the thread through this core central teaching to the Christian faith is hiddenness. Don't let your left hand see what your right hand is doing, right?
Yeah, come on.
Matthew 6:6, but when you pray, go into your room, and when you have shut the door, pray to your Father who is where? In the secret place. So where's God? Anybody ask that question?
So good.
Where's God? The Bible has, just a couple places. He's in here. Christ in me, the hope of glory. But where's God also? He's in the secret place.
Come on.
Shut your door, pray to your Father who is, where do you find God? In secret. I'm not just talking about a prayer closet, and I'm not just talking about prayer. I'm talking about, you want to meet with God? He loves what's in secret. He loves that inner place of the heart. He's not looking at the outward appearance. He's not looking at our big things and our accomplishments. He's looking at the heart.
Come on.
It's really good.
Pray to your Father who's in the secret place, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you openly. Where is God? He's in the secret. How does God see? In the secret.
That's good.
Come on.
How does God see? He sees through the lens of hiddenness and humility and childlikeness.
It's good.
I'm going to unpack that some more.
So good. Hate.
I want to be clear as well. I think I've maybe given enough disclaimers for the mess, but guys, it's true. We're wired for greatness. Remember when in Matthew 9 or Luke 9, where the disciples came to Jesus and they're like, "We want to be greatest in the kingdom of heaven. We want to sit at your right and your left." Is it going to be us? Is it going to be me? And he gets, like James talks to his mom and has his mom go talk to Jesus about sitting at his right hand in the throne of glory. It's hilarious. It's so funny. Like, dude, you got your mom to go ask Jesus that for you? Wow. That is not greatness material.
And for the whole eternity, everyone gonna know.
That's right. And I want to be clear about this. Notice how Jesus in Luke 9:46 doesn't actually rebuke the disciples for wanting to be great.
Right.
He redirects their aim at greatness.
So good.
And I'd like to propose to you that you're wired for greatness.
Come on.
You're wired for fame.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're wired to be known. It's just, what does the outworking of that look like? And the Bible's actually really clear that in the Beatitudes, I think it's Matthew 6 again, that you could have your reward now on earth, or you could have your reward now in heaven. The eyes of man could be all over what you're doing and all this stuff, but they have their reward now, or there is a place of reward in eternity. And we live in this kingdom, and like God's all about reward. Like Hebrews 11, that you must believe that God is, and he is a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. Mm-hmm. So guys, we're wired for reward.
Yeah.
And it's not an unhealthy thing. And it's not even a performance thing when it's done out of, I live to bring pleasure to God. I already have favor with God. I'm already fully accepted in his sight, but I love seeing the smile on his face. I love being one that can move his heart, like the prostitute at the feet of Jesus that moves God's heart. I want to be the centurion that shows up out of nowhere and just through my faith makes Jesus himself marvel. Yeah. Like we have that's so crazy and out of the box for me that we can actually, through our action, not even God inspired, he's made us sovereign beings, right? That we can come out of our own choice and will and desire, and we can move the heart of God.
That's good.
And I think that's probably the most important thing.
Yes. Amen.
So, part of the byproduct, I think, of being in a revival culture is we talk about revival all the time. Big surprise. And within that, let's just take sharing testimonies for a second. So we're in a testimony culture where we share testimonies all the time to celebrate what God is doing, and rightly so, because when you share testimony, it prophesies and releases faith and grace in a room for what is possible to be done. So within that, there's this subtle trap in our revival culture where it's easy to know the right words to say, to have the right testimonies to share, to know how to maybe ramp up a room and bring a room in and, and create an agreement and an expectation and a faith in a room. And I'm not saying any of that's bad. All I'm saying is that if we're not careful, we forget that that this whole thing was never really about ramping up a room in faith. It's about not letting our left hand know what our right hand is doing.
Come on.
And it's actually about God being hidden, us being hidden in him, and that beautiful intimate interaction. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So the giftedness is a byproduct. It's not necessarily the goal. This fame mentality, I feel like we spend a lot of time even as well focusing on the big name ministries, the big guns, the Bill Johnsons, the revivalists, the books, we all know these forerunners. The issue I see with that, especially in my own life, is that I subconsciously measure the success and growth of my own life according to the stature of these big name ministers. Mm-hmm. And the problem with that is
Did you eat French onion bites? Did you?
Yes. Tell people about Patreon, honey.
I'm kidding.
Well, they're waiting, honey.
It's a carrot. Give me a break.
Go ahead.
If you like the podcast, you can donate $1 a month on Patreon to help support the podcast. I said the podcast too many times, didn't I?
It's fine.
Also, eat your vegetables. And this dip. I'd like to probably do it again.
Ministry life is not real life. Ministry life is the exception. Stay with me. Real life is showing up to work to wash the dishes in your restaurant, showing up to your business, showing up as a mom every day, showing up to, and I'm not discounting ministry life, but Are you guys tracking with this?
Yes. It's good.
Ministry life is the exception. Bill Johnson has a very specific calling, and you're not called to live the success and live the exact blueprint of Bill Johnson's life.
Right. Right.
Your success in God's eyes to you looks radically different, and you're not necessarily supposed to stand up on a stage every day and give a message that makes everyone's jaw drop to the ground. So I think Jesus, seriously guys, I think he busts a gut laughing at the weight and significance we put on our titles and leadership roles and our job promotions. I think he loses his mind. I think he thinks it's so freaking comical and funny because he's like, and let me say this, like, titles are really helpful, and I don't think we should get rid of titles at all. Like, in my work as a pastor, it's actually super helpful when I can come to someone and be like, hey, I'm a pastor. And there's a trust and there's a rest that comes over people when they know you're not crazy and you have some level of qualification or some degree or some... So none of that's bad, but what I'm saying is we have subconsciously made that success because it's so visual and transactional and say, hey bro, guess what? What? I'm a Fortune 500 CEO, dude. Like... And then everyone's like, oh. And everyone's ears perk up a little bit. Oh, you pastor your own church? Oh, okay. Oh, you have a podcast? Oh, you wrote a book? Oh, you have a business. And subtly, in all of our hearts, when we have that conversation with one another, we exalt or lower according to this subconscious hierarchy of what we think success is.
Come on.
That is not biblical or the kingdom. God does not see as man sees. He looks at the inward person of the heart. And we make king and we exalt the business owners and the leaders and the big name ministries. We make king when God has not made that king. He chose David on the backside of the frickin' wilderness, who was conceived in sin, it says in the Psalms, who was an illegitimate son, wasn't even invited to the prophet's house. I don't know what that means, conceived in sin, or there was another woman or an adulterous relationship or something, but that's what it says. And so God has this way of choosing the least of these.
Come on.
He has this way of taking Gideon, the most fearful, unanointed, disqualified person, and making him the savior of the freaking nation, and taking Israel, the Jews, they were just a weak people, you know? Like, there was nothing special or ramped up about them, but he chose them. He took Moses, who can't even talk. You're going to talk to thousands and millions and billions. And he takes Jesus. Let's just talk about Jesus for a second. This man is God, and he's born a baby crapping his pants in a manger in a freaking barnyard. And he shows up to earth and no one's there. No one is there. There's no big deal. It's a couple shepherds in a field and an angel. And that's great, there's an angel there, and I wish I was there, and I'm sure it was awesome, but he didn't show up to the kings and business people of the earth. He didn't show up to the leaders and the ones that were qualified. You know, we heard it earlier, it's the foolish things of this world. It's the foolish things of God that he uses to actually confound and prove his glory.
Come on, that's good. That's so good.
So I think Jesus laughs at our titles and leadership roles all the time.
Yes.
I think there's a real issue as well with that subconscious hierarchy, because even the person talking, who's ever up on the stage or whatever the microphone deal is, are anointed pastors who are anointed. I believe in it. I hope you guys get my heart, right?
Yeah.
This is one
of them. Okay.
This is a really fine line. Like, it's really hard to talk about this stuff while honoring the church. I believe, man, I go to church, worked in the church. I love it. But the distance that we put between that person on that stage and us is the gap of shame, the measure of shame you live under.
Yes.
That distance is not godly.
Come on.
Whether it's that you're putting that person up here, that gap is the measure of shame you live under.
Come on.
Come on.
Or the
drop
gap
bomb.
below, oh, that
Yeah.
person's down here, they're just a mom.
Wow.
Oh.
He's just a carpenter.
Come on, dude.
That down there is the measure of pride you submit your heart to.
Wow.
That's
Come on.
gnarly, bro.
Wow.
And so we need freaking prophetic discernment, man, to be able to not see as man sees, but to see
Come on.
the heart.
That's good. Come on.
So
Hey,
it's still messy. Sorry, guys.
Go ahead.
I love it.
I'm also concerned.
So good.
Go ahead, bro.
I'm also concerned that we have a whole generation of people in the church who can do ministry and say the right language and pray on prayer lines. And we have 590 prophetic words about being fathers and mothers of nations. And we all do though. We all do. And we can jump through, we know all the hoops to jump through in our churches to get favor and to be known and do the right thing and say the right thing. And we can even do miracles, and that's awesome, and it's all good and biblical, but it's a half-truth. It's like an anemic half-truth perspective, because greatness is just way, way bigger than that.
Come on.
Come on.
It's just it's way simpler in a lot of ways. It's way bigger. So, who is the greater calling? Is my question to you, TD Jakes, or my buddy Tom Hearn, who Tom Hearn works in a he manufactures gutters in a random back of the woods plant in Canada. So TD Jakes, most anointed preacher that's ever walked the earth, or my buddy Tom Hearn.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Come on.
That's my point. Like, I actually don't know who is the greater calling, Heidi Baker or my friend Beth Malkin from Jesus Culture in Sacramento, who's been just a closet intercessor praying for revival in Sacramento for 50 years, and then Jesus Culture shows up to the doors of Sacramento. It's like, okay, well, I guess we'll set up church here. Like, who is the greater calling?
Right.
Come on.
We don't know. But we assume,
Right.
and that's a problem.
Yeah.
My assumption is a problem. And the way we measure, because if you assume, you have a value system. You got to that assumption because of a value system in your heart. And I'm not convinced anymore that God has that value system in his heart where he measures success and bigness because of big name things and big name accomplishments.
Come on. That's good.
So there's a couple reasons why I think we got here, which I think will help explain and maybe create an awareness. We're not supposed to be unaware of the enemy's devices, so maybe this little section is some of that. I think we have a lot of information. There's more information than ever. There's more teaching and more preaching than ever before in the church. And I think within so I'll call this like churchianity. Like,
That's a good one.
churchianity has become its own subculture under the kingdom. God's not afraid. He's not like abandoning the church, but it's the best way I can really describe what I feel like is kind of going on right now in the church as abroad in America is just like, no, I won't say that. So information and teaching, we don't want to get too messy. Information and teaching without knowing the voice of God it's knowledge apart from wisdom.
Uh-oh.
And I think all of our teaching and podcasts and all this stuff, I mean, I have a podcast. I believe in it. Like, let's keep doing it.
To it. It's good.
But my point is, go listen to my podcast. Thank you.
Blueprint Live.
It's big name. Big things.
The wife blueprint. No.
I'm still drunk.
So I think-
it's okay.
I think we have a lot of information in the church today that is devoid of wisdom, and it's confusing us.
Yeah.
So I think we need wisdom. I think we have gatherings. Our gatherings are held in large and expensive buildings and stadiums and things. And it's just, I don't know. Not that we should stop meeting in buildings, but I think it's almost unnatural. Our preachers and our pastors stand up on big stages with microphones for really practical reasons, so their voice doesn't go hoarse like mine is right now.
Right.
Like, there's real reasons behind this, but it makes things weird. And it's the people who are coming and sitting in our pews and seats, we end up with these assumptions about, because this person's on a stage, they are elevated because they physically are elevated. And it's confusing. And so I really like this. Like, this feels really cool to me. And I think God is all over this right now, and I think this is how church started, and this is probably going to be how church ends in the final last days. I'm just pumped about like home gatherings. I will continue going to big churches, just so you know. Gotta clean up my mess as we go here. Because here's the deal, you could hear one side of this message and this could just reinforce your bitterness towards the church.
Yeah.
The organized big church. You could hear that side of the message.
Listen
You say,
to
don't
last
do
year's.
it.
Listen to
Don't do
last
it.
year's message.
Do it.
And I think we also have like 300 years of the man of God
Yeah.
ministering on a stage, demonstrating his ministry, his gifts, his prophetic calling that was important because it exposes where we're all called as believers. But the function of the big name, Ephesians chapter 4 verse 12.
Yes.
The apostolic, it's the gifts of the church, the leadership structure of the church. God has anointed the apostle, the prophet, the evangelist, the pastor, the teacher. Why? Why has he created this leadership structure in the church?
Their foundation.
One reason: for the equipping of the saints.
Come on.
The equipping for the work of ministry.
Yes.
I would like to propose to you that fivefold big name stuff is a secondary calling in comparison to being a saint.
Come on. That's good.
They serve us as saints. Their role is not supposed to be up here and the end all be all, oh, well, I want to be an apostle, obviously, because they're in charge of everything. You know what I mean? Like, obviously I'm going to be an apostle. I feel like I'm called to the apostolic. I don't know. It's just the Lord he just keeps, it's just the whispers of heaven. It's just the grace.
Teacher.
And guys, it's so that they can equip you, the saints, they can equip you for you do the work. They're not doing work.
Yeah.
Biblically.
Come on.
They are, but you get what I'm saying. I'm trying to make a point. Yeah. You guys are the end all be all. Us as the church, us as the saints,
Come on.
you have the greater calling.
Yes. Amen.
So don't live under shame
That's good.
Come on.
Come on.
about
really good.
what you are not or how you don't measure up. So we have this man of God mentality. I think, and then lastly, I think we have a bless me Christianity mentality where it's a lot become about convenience, and I come to God and I come to worship because I need a breakthrough. I need a blessing. And I do need a blessing and a breakthrough. And I do, and the Lord wants to give you your blessing and your breakthrough. But way before God is my slot machine for blessing, He is the Lord that I worship.
Yes.
And He is worthy of my love simply because He is God. And the lack of the lordship of Jesus in our lives makes our church structure and even how we think about our calling and success, it makes it really weird because it's about me. And all of a sudden, so my calling all of a sudden is about I need to be significant, but it's for God. I need to be significant because I'm in Christianity for a bless me, for a promotion, for a breakthrough.
Come on.
And if I can get up and do something really significant and exciting, then that's my model of Christianity, and I hit the nail on the head.
Come on.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
So good.
So, you want to know more about real deal Christianity? Go read Daniel 1, 2, and 3 about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and they say they're about to be thrown in the fire, and they're like, yeah, King Nebuchadnezzar, you could throw us in the fire, and God's going to deliver us, but even if he doesn't, just know that you're not God and Jesus is God.
Come on.
We're just not bowing to you.
That's good.
And we're not afraid, and we could die, and God might not deliver us, but we're still believers.
Come on.
That's Christianity.
Come on.
No skin in the game.
That's so good.
It's not about us.
That's good.
So
Okay.
good.
So now we're gonna go into the positive. Yay! So what? Elliot's already encouraged.
We got out of the way what not to do, you know? So.
Are you just entertained?
Yeah.
Okay. So so what's real? Like what's really going on in heaven's culture? Again, we're talking about what does it look like to be famous in heaven? I want to be famous in heaven, and I want to be feared in hell, and I don't care what happens on earth, because I just don't think it's all that important. I don't care, because really, we may not think that much about eternity now, but on that day before the throne of God, it's all you're going to be thinking about, baby.
Come on.
That's it. That's...
Amen.
So we're really living for and to that day. So I think heaven and angels... Guys, I'm really convinced that they're constantly gossiping about us. I think there's probably a People magazine in heaven. Actually. And I think the people who make the cover of People magazine in heaven are the ones that minister to the least of these.
Yeah.
Whatever you've done unto the least of these, you've done unto me, Jesus said in Matthew 25, right? And it's the broken, and it's the lost, and it's the rejected, and but it's not just the poor in terms of physical poverty and the homelessness on the street. Really what that meant in that time and culture, whoever you overlook. That's the least of these. And they could have $1 million and a big deal going on in their life, or they could have nothing and be drug addicted on the street. But it's whoever is overlooked by society and culture. And that could be, there's opportunity every moment of every day of whatever room you're in, zeroing in, loving on whoever is, I kind of tend to overlook that person. It's kind of awkward to talk to them. You don't make me feel super good, and it's actually inconvenient I want to talk with my friends and see, but I'm a Christian. And, but,
This is the encouraging part.
Yeah.
dang it.
It's coming. I feel it.
But
I like it.
y'all could get on the cover of People magazine in heaven.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So good.
Yes.
That's good.
It's also fascinating how in heaven, or in spirit rather, nothing's hidden. So here, it's kind of easy to hide stuff, and you could, not even bad stuff, but it's just easy to see with your eyes and think with your mind and come to conclusions about things because of how someone looks or whatever. But in the spirit, everything that you have or do not have it's laid bare for the eyes of angels, demons, the Lord himself, whatever. It's all exposed. You can't hide anything in the spirit. I don't know if you guys know that.
Yeah. So good.
But in the spirit, it's completely laid bare. So you might be walking around right now thinking I'm kind of just struggling along in my life as a believer. I'm kind of just I'm just kind of getting by. I don't really feel like I'm making any massive significant difference. But you picked up a piece of trash and you used the measure of faith that was given to you yesterday and stepped out and awkwardly prayed for someone at the grocery store. Or you took an extra moment and did the dishes for your wife when you hate doing dishes, but she loves it when you do dishes. And so you decided, I'm exhausted and I'm tired and I worked a 12-hour day setting tile, and I will do the dishes because I love my
Praise
wife.
the Lord.
It's almost like you
Is he saying something? Is he saying something?
And all the while, you're walking around thinking you're a second-class Christian when you're emanating gold and riches in the Spirit.
That's awesome.
That's good work.
That's
Amen.
really good.
That's so good.
So
Yes.
I need to see that way. I need to, like the Bible talks about having physical, tangible riches, but then you could be rich towards God. Rich towards God is the exact language that's used. Luke 12:21. Rich towards God. I want that, man.
That's good.
He just defined greatness crystal clear, and he lived it too, right? It's in childlikeness. You want to be great? Become like a child. You want to be great? Become the servant of all. You want to be great? Go into hiddenness. Not in terms of like you can't manifest, like go do big exploits for the Lord, but there's a condition of the heart. This is really important. There's a hiddenness of the heart. There's a position of the heart where I am hidden in Christ. Amen. I don't have skin in the game. I don't need your buy-in. I don't need your approval for this message. Although it would be nice and it would be encouraging. I'm hidden in Christ.
Yeah.
That's right.
And at the end of the day, who the heck cares what you think?
Yeah. Amen.
It's what God thinks.
Come on.
So good, bro. So good.
Having nothing yet possessing all things.
It's good.
So I think little is the new big in the kingdom. Amen. You wanna walk in like the deep prophetic, like really know like the deep prophetic heart of God. Here's my challenge to you. Find greatness and significance in the most mundane, menial tasks.
Come on. So good. Tell us more.
Don't set your greatness and your significance and even in your dream for some massive future breakthrough date. That's great. Keep dreaming. Keep going after it. Like the world needs to be saved. So there's work for us to do. However, I'm tired of my own disqualification of doing the dishes. I'm tired of my own self-disqualification of folding my laundry, of feeling like I'm not measuring up because I'm not in ministry anymore.
Come on.
Paul's apron, dude, has been blowing my mind. They took in Acts, the book of Acts, they took Paul's dirty, sweaty, smelly work apron from building tents. And they took that and they laid it on the sick, and that's what caused the miracles, not his preaching Bible. They didn't take his notes. They didn't take his mantle, Benny Hinn mantle. You know what I mean? They didn't take that. They took something extremely practical, mundane, and kind of gross, and they took that to the sick, and that was the contact point of God. So, Brother Lawrence, who is one of my heroes, man, he was a Catholic mystic, friar, gave his life to prayer. He was disqualified even from being a monk because they thought he was too stupid. So they put him in the kitchen to do the dishes. And this man affectionately called himself the Lord of the Pots and Pans. And this man came to a place of intimacy and prayer with Jesus where he would get raptured in this love and this ecstasy encounter to the point where the presence of God would fill the room. It would overflow out down the halls, and people like kings and queens and significant people from all over the land, no joke, documented deal, would come to watch this man do dishes. He called himself the king of the pots and pans. He said, quote, something along the lines of, some paraphrase, and I quote. He said, but I'll actually get it really close because I like pray this because I want it, and I have memorized it. He said, the time of prayer does not differ from any other time. He said, when I'm in my kitchen, in the clatter of pots and pans, and many people are calling my name all at once, I am in the presence of God and in as much communion with the Holy Spirit as if I was upon my knees at the Blessed Sacrament.
Come on.
In the midst of all the noise and the mundaneness of life and the normal, do you have the courage? Do we have the courage? Do we have the faith to be normal for God?
Come on.
I don't know if I do. And I really, guys, I really believe that in our normal, God will take that, breathe on it, and make it supernatural, like he took normal for David, like he took baby Jesus normal for Jesus, like he took Paul's normal dysfunction and murder for Christians. Breathed on it, put grace on it, and made it amazing.
Amen.
Come on. That's awesome.
Yeah, the least of these.
I mean,
So what happens? So when that Matthew chapter 6 hiddenness deal is at the center of our hearts, there's a few really significant things that happen. Competition goes away.
Come on.
Our Christian Olympics. Dude, they're exhausting. They're so tiring. Or like subtle little comparisons and thinkings and they go away, man. And we really need that.
No triathlons.
Like the special.
You know what I feel like just happened? You know what I feel like just happened? I'm like bringing the plane in for a landing, and I'm like 50 feet off the ground, and the landing gear just fell off. That's what I feel like just happened in the spirit. So when you have this hiddenness, this position of your heart, competition goes away, shame goes away. And guys, unity comes. Because we don't need to compare ourselves among ourselves, and we actually become this body of Christ where I realize, oh, I'm a thumb. I'm not a foot. That's interesting and very liberating. I don't have to do what my foot does because my foot can't do what my thumb does and my thumb can't do what my foot does. That's so empowering. Oh my gosh. I know my lane. I don't have to like lane swerve and be Banning and Bill and Smith and a little bit of Brad Pitt and I don't have to do that because I'm a thumb and God made me a thumb and that's really significant and important.
Amen.
So we create this we just glorify Jesus in that. So in the practical, and I'm legit wrapping up now, I think. We
25 seconds left.
25 seconds. We need a discernment. I said at the beginning, we need and I just can't give this to you. This is not something that like can be talked about. It's the presence of God.
Come on.
This is why this is real deal Christianity. Like this is make or break your life as a believer. Like we're not here to follow rules. We're not here just to do church or great meetings or talk and be funny, but we're here to know God, to know Christ and Him crucified and the power of His resurrection and all of His glory. Like we're here to live out the finished work of Christ and to have that grace flowing through our lives. So we need, guys, God's thinking towards us. We need moments like this that kind of maybe kickstart our thinking into a different path and we start measuring and stewarding our hearts in a different way. But the prophetic eyes of Samuel, man, that's my prayer for me. Like it says in Proverbs chapter 2, lift up your voice for discernment. Cry out for discernment. Lift up your voice for understanding. Seek her as jewels and hidden treasure. Pay any price for discernment. Pay any price for understanding. Pay any price for wisdom.
Come on.
And it's in this place and this hunger toward the Lord. And I just encourage you guys, like, receive it now. I believe like something's in the room right now.
Hey.
For us to even like get it now and understand that final quest deal and understand that how Jesus defined greatness. but also take it to your secret place. Take it to prayer. Pray in your car. However you connect with the Lord in the coffee shop or whatever, doing the dishes, take it before him and Lord, give me the prophetic eyes.
Come on.
To see. Another example is 2 Kings 6:16, where they're surrounded by the army, where Elijah, is it Elijah or Elijah? Elijah or Shah? Shah. Let's just call him Shah. That's modern.
It's like
Where they're surrounded by the army, right? And the servant is freaking out because it's like chariots and armies and crazy stuff. And he says, oh, don't be afraid, to his servant. Elisha says, don't be afraid. There are more who are with us than those who are against us. And then he prays, God, open the eyes that he might see. And he sees the chariots of fire and the armies of heaven surrounding this moment. And I have to have those eyes, because so often, you guys, what looks like a failure on the outside is a wild, raging success in the kingdom.
Come on.
I think that's it.
And that's